The room was silent, too silent. It was a bright morning in Ouagadougou, but inside the presidential press room the air felt heavy. Cameras flashed. Reporters from CNN, Al Jazeera, BBC, and dozens of African outlets had been summoned for an urgent global announcement. Minutes before the event began, a confidential document had leaked. An $800 million proposal from U.S. President Donald Trump to Burkina Faso. The media couldn't believe it. Trump was offering funds for infrastructure, security, and stability. But many whispered that it was more than just money. It was a silent grab for control. Then Captain Ibrahim Traoré walked in. He didn't smile. He didn't wave. Wearing his olive military uniform and a stern face, he stood at the podium and looked straight into the cameras. "I have received the offer," he said quietly, "and I say this with clarity. Burkina Faso will never be bought." The room froze. Journalists gasped. An American anchor whispered, "Did he just reject $800 million on live TV?" But Traoré wasn't done. "We are not for sale. Our dignity is not a currency, and our people's future will not be outsourced." Social media exploded. Hashtags on Traore rejects Trump and Africa Rising began trending worldwide. And this was just the beginning. Within 2 hours, Donald Trump appeared on Fox News. His face was red with frustration. The host asked if he had expected Traoré's rejection. "It's a slap in the face," Trump said sharply. "I gave him a golden opportunity, $800 million, and he spits on it?" The host nodded nervously. Trump leaned forward and looked straight into the camera. "He's sabotaging progress. He's turning his back on the U.S., on investment, on development. And for what? Some false idea of pride?" Meanwhile, in Burkina Faso, millions watched in silence. The markets had paused. Students in schools watched the footage on small TVs. Mothers in village homes crowded around radios. Even opposition figures didn't know what to say. But Traoré, he remained calm. His team released no statement. Instead, he visited a rural village in the northern region, one recently rebuilt after terrorist attacks. He met children barefoot in dust, held elders' hands, and ate lunch under a mango tree. A local elder told him, "Don't bow to foreign money. We survived without them. We will rise without them." Traoré nodded. He whispered, "This is why I said no." Back in America, pundits called him arrogant. But across Africa, something else was rising: respect. That night, while much of the world was still reacting to the drama, Traoré's office released a letter. It was not addressed to Trump. It was addressed to the youth of Africa. Written in plain, heartfelt words, it read, "They offer us millions, but attach silent chains. They promise progress, but demand our obedience. My brothers and sisters, we cannot trade our future for a quick fix. We are not poor. We are robbed. We are not helpless. We are made to feel small. But we are not. We are strong. We are enough. We are Africa." Within 10 minutes, the letter went viral. Instagram feeds filled with its words. TikTok creators cried while reading it. Nigerian influencers reposted it. South African rappers made freestyles about it. And somewhere in Washington, Trump watched in disbelief. "He's making me look like the villain," Trump muttered to an aide. Back in Burkina Faso, school children wrote the letter down and recited it in class. A girl in Bobo-Dioulasso broke down in tears. "I never felt proud to be African before," she whispered. "Now I do." Something deep was stirring, but Traoré knew. The pressure was only just beginning. At 2:43 a.m., Traoré's phone buzzed. It wasn't his security chief. It wasn't a minister. It was a private line from Washington. A senior U.S. diplomat, speaking calmly but urgently, said, "Captain, we need to talk, quietly." Traoré stepped out onto his balcony under the dark sky of Ouagadougou. The diplomat's voice was cold. Rejecting Trump on live TV? Do you realize what you've done? I did what was right, Traore replied. You've embarrassed a former U.S. president. This could backfire. Your economy, your safety. Think about your people. Then the line went silent. The next morning, 2 banks announced they were freezing Burkina Faso's foreign transactions. Food prices jumped. Fuel shortages began. News anchors called it suspicious timing. Protesters gathered, shouting, "They're punishing us." But Traore didn't blink. He stood before the nation again and said, "If standing for dignity means losing convenience, so be it. I will not trade your future for comfort, not ever." His voice was steady, but his eyes were tired. Outside, in the poorest neighborhoods, children skipped breakfast. But something was rising in their hearts. Pride. And pride is more powerful than any loan. It started with a single video. A 10-year-old girl named Aissata sat under a tree in rural Burkina Faso, her schoolbooks on her lap. Her clothes were worn, her shoes torn, but her voice shook the world. President Traore said no to money, because we are not for sale. I don't have much, but I have hope. I have my flag. That's enough for me. She wiped her eyes. Tell the world we are not weak. We are just poor. But we are not ashamed. The video was posted by her teacher. Within hours, it had millions of views. In Kenya, people cried. In Haiti, they clapped. In Brazil, they translated her message. In France, reporters asked, "Who is this little girl changing the global conversation?" Even in Washington, a CNN host choked up reading her words live. Trump's allies called it emotional manipulation. But others saw something different. Raw truth. Later that week, Traore surprised everyone by visiting Aissata's village. He knelt beside her and whispered, "Thank you for reminding me why we fight." She cried into his shoulder. He cried too. Because sometimes it takes a child to teach the world what leadership looks like. The presidential palace received an envelope. No sender. Just 4 words written on the front. For Captain Traore, please. Inside was a handwritten letter and an old photo. It read, "My name is Miriam. My husband was a soldier. He died 2 years ago protecting a convoy near Djibo. I raise our 3 children alone. We have no steady food, sometimes no water. When I heard you said no to the money, I was angry. We need help. But last night my son said something that broke me. He said, 'Mama, Traore is fighting for our soul.' And I wept. So this morning, I cooked rice and dried okra. Just enough for 1 person. Please accept it. It's all I can give. Thank you for not selling us." Traore read the letter in silence. He didn't speak for 10 minutes. Then he took the photo of her husband and placed it in his chest pocket, next to his heart. "We will make it through," he said quietly. And that night, the palace served only rice and dried okra, because dignity is not measured by riches. It's measured by sacrifice and love. It was a rainy evening in Ouagadougou. The streets were muddy. Children had long gone inside. But one boy, 9 years old, stood alone outside the presidential gates, soaked, shivering. A soldier approached. "Go home, little one." The boy shook his head and held up a plastic bag. Inside was a drawing, a picture of Captain Traore standing on a map of Africa, holding a broken chain. "I came to give this to him," the boy said. "Tell him not to give up." The soldier paused, then radioed the palace. 10 minutes later, Ibrahim Traoré himself came out, umbrella in hand. He knelt beside the boy. "What's your name?" "Ismael." "Why did you come in the rain?" "Because you protect us, and I wanted to protect you too." Traoré's eyes filled with tears. He hugged Ismael tight, his uniform soaking wet. That night, the photo of Traoré holding Ismael went viral. No speech, no slogans, just a soldier and a child under the rain. And somehow it spoke louder than any $800 million deal. The pressure was building. After weeks of tension, fuel shortages, and blocked aid, whispers began within Traoré's cabinet. One minister, anonymous at first, leaked a private memo to the international press. The headline read, "Top official says Traoré endangering nation by rejecting U.S. help." Panic spread. TV shows debated if the government was breaking apart. Foreign envoys urged Traoré to reconsider. Some African leaders called him reckless. That evening, Traoré summoned his entire cabinet. Cameras were off, phones were off. He looked around the room and said, "If any of you believe this chair is more important than our people, you may leave. Tonight." Silence. Then one minister, a man he had trusted, stood. "I can't follow you into ruin," he said. "The world won't let us survive without them." He walked out. No one else moved. Traoré sat still. "Let them leave," he whispered, "but we will not kneel." Later that night, in a quiet room, Traoré looked at a photo of his mother. He remembered her words. "You will know who your true friends are when everything becomes hard." He smiled faintly. "Now I know." The sun had barely risen when Traoré visited a cemetery on the outskirts of Bobo-Dioulasso. There, beneath a humble headstone, lay his childhood friend, Bakari. Bakari had died 2 years earlier, shot during a protest against foreign military presence. A bullet meant for someone else had hit him in the chest. Traoré never forgot. He knelt beside the grave. "Bakari," he whispered, "they think I'm making a mistake, that I should have taken the money. But I remember your voice that day. You said, 'They will never understand our pain, because they never felt our hunger.'" His voice cracked. "I could have chosen comfort, but I chose your memory. I chose all those who died unseen, unheard." Behind him, a group of mothers watched from a distance. One woman approached, eyes filled with tears. "My son is buried here too," she said, "and I want you to know. We see you." She held his hand. That moment wasn't on camera. There were no headlines. But it was real. And sometimes, the quietest moments carry the loudest truth. The lights went out. At first, people thought it was a glitch. Then the hours dragged on. By morning, it was official. Burkina Faso had been disconnected from a major regional power grid. Cities plunged into darkness. Water stopped running in certain zones. ATMs froze. Schools shut down. And rumors spread like wildfire. America is behind this. This is punishment. We are being suffocated. Outside the U.S. Embassy in Ouagadougou, peaceful protesters gathered, holding candles and signs that read, "We will not bow." Captain Ibrahim Traoré walked through the crowds, not in a convoy, but on foot. No guards, no weapons, just him and the people. A young boy approached with a flashlight and handed it to him. "You don't need electricity," he said. "Your courage already lights the country." Traoré knelt and hugged him tight. "We may lose power," he told the press, "but we will never lose purpose, and no one will force us to sell our soul." The world watched, and for the first time even some American journalists began to ask, what if he's right? It arrived at dawn, a sealed envelope from Accra, Ghana, hand-delivered to Traoré's office. Inside was a message from Ghana's president, handwritten and signed. "Dear Brother Ibrahim, your stand has stirred the hearts of many, mine included. I remember what it felt like to be told, 'You cannot make it without us. You are not alone. If the world turns its back on you, know that Ghana stands beside you. Let them freeze funds, we'll open ours. Let them cut power, we'll share ours. We will rise together.'" Tears welled in the eyes of everyone in the room. For days, Traore had carried the burden of isolation. But now, Africa was waking up. The press captured the moment he read the letter aloud. Even hardened soldiers wiped their eyes, and within hours, messages flooded in from Mali, Niger, and even civilians in Kenya. We are with you. Africa is one. Don't give in. A student in Dakar held a sign. One president said no. A whole continent stood up. And just like that, what was once a lonely fight became a movement. The tide was turning. In a small rural hospital near Kaya, the final generator coughed and died. The doctor stood frozen. The nurses looked helpless. 4 newborns lay in incubators. There was no time to wait. One nurse, Mama Yara, sprinted to the edge of the village. She shouted to the crowd, "Call the president. Tell him we need help now." Word reached Traore within minutes. He didn't hesitate. He ordered his personal convoy diverted, the only one in the region with backup batteries. Within 45 minutes, the entire presidential team arrived at the hospital. Soldiers carried batteries inside as nurses cried. The incubators lit back up. The babies survived. Traore didn't give a speech. He simply sat on the hospital bench, cradled one of the infants in his arms, and whispered, "You made it. You're going to grow up free." A nurse recorded it quietly. That video traveled across the globe. Millions watched in silence as a soldier held a newborn in the dark, lit only by flickering battery lights. And in that moment, people stopped seeing him as just a leader. They saw a father to a nation. It was supposed to be a routine interview. Burkina Faso's national broadcaster had invited Captain Ibrahim Traoré for a pre-recorded message to the nation. But 5 minutes in, the anchor, Madame Sira, suddenly went off script. She paused, looked at him, and said quietly, "My son died last year during a terrorist ambush. He was only 22. He joined the army after hearing your speech about defending our land. And he died proud, but I didn't get to bury him." Traoré froze. Sira's voice cracked. "They say you're putting us in danger by rejecting America. But if my son were alive today, I think he'd still stand with you." Silence filled the studio. Traoré gently reached across the table and took her hand. His voice broke. "No mother should bury a son. But if I must carry this burden alone, I will. For him. For all of them." A single tear rolled down his face, and the cameras kept rolling. That clip was shared around the world. One tear, one leader, one promise. Late one night, Traoré sat alone in his study. He hadn't slept in over 30 hours. Reports were flooding in. Currency devaluation, stalled imports, more political pressure. His phone dinged. An email from an unknown address. It read, "Dear Mr. President, my husband serves under you in the eastern region. I haven't seen him in 3 months. We have 2 daughters. Yesterday, my youngest asked, 'Mama, is Papa gone forever?' I cried in the bathroom so they wouldn't see me. But I also want you to know, we are proud. He is proud. You are not alone. They can starve our wallets, but they can't starve our hearts." Traoré read it again and again. Then quietly he stood up and walked to a large wall in his office where the faces of fallen soldiers hung. He added 2 photos, the woman's husband and her daughters. Aide entered the room. "Sir, should we prepare tomorrow's speech?" Traoré looked at the wall. "No," he said softly. "Tomorrow, we speak from the heart." At the United Nations General Assembly, tension was thick. Traoré had sent his foreign minister to deliver a message to the world, a clear, powerful address on African dignity and self-reliance. But as she rose to speak, something shocking happened. The U.S. ambassador stood up and walked out. Half the hall followed. The cameras zoomed in on the minister's face. Her voice trembled, but then she took a breath. "Walk out. Close your ears. Shut your eyes."
But you cannot stop the sun from rising over Africa. The few delegates who remained stood in quiet applause. Later that night, the footage aired globally. A prominent South African journalist tweeted, "They walked out on truth, but truth sat down in every living room across this continent." In Burkina Faso, families watched with pride. Even children understood, "We are standing alone, but we are not falling." And when Traore visited a local school the next day, a little girl handed him a drawing. It was of him holding a cracked globe, and underneath were 3 simple words, "Still standing strong."
A crisis hit. 3 trucks carrying grain into the Sahel were ambushed. Supply chains were already weak. Now the food shortage became a full-blown emergency. Children fainted in schools. Mothers boiled water just to fill empty stomachs. At the presidential palace, the cabinet was panicking. "We must take the deal back," one minister shouted. "We're going to lose everything," cried another. Traore stood up. "We will lose nothing if we keep our soul." But that night, in the privacy of his room, he broke down. He looked at his hands, shaking. He thought of Ismail in the rain, Aissata reading under the mango tree, the widow who gave her only food. And he whispered, "I've given them hope, but what if I fail them?" Just then a soft knock came at the door. It was a young army nurse holding a clay bowl of porridge. "This is all I have, sir," she said. "You gave us your strength, let me give you mine." He took it, tears falling, and he remembered, hope doesn't die from hunger. It dies from silence. And he was not silent. Just when it seemed all was lost, the world shifted. News broke. Several African tech startups, farmers' cooperatives, and diaspora investors were pledging aid, not from governments, but from the people. Then, the shocker. Brazil's president publicly offered support. Burkina Faso has dignity. We see it, we respect it, and we will trade with it, without chains, without deals soaked in silence. Soon after, South Africa, Algeria, and even parts of Asia began extending cooperative partnerships. Traore stood before the nation and said, "They thought we were alone. But the spirit of Africa is not lonely. It is simply waiting to rise." That night, images filled social media. A farmer planting maize with the caption, "I fight with my soil." A mother braiding her daughter's hair, "I fight with my culture." A soldier smiling under the sun, "I fight with my heart." And in the capital, lights turned back on. Not because foreign hands flipped the switch, but because Burkina Faso found its power again. Weeks later, a massive independence celebration filled the streets of Ouagadougou. Drums, dancers, women in green, red, and gold. But what stole the world's heart wasn't the music. It was a boy. A 7-year-old child named Abdoulaye walked onto the stage holding a handmade flag. His voice echoed through the microphone. "Captain Traoré, I wrote a poem for you." He took a deep breath and said, "You didn't give us bread, but you gave us bravery. You didn't give us gold, but you gave us greatness. You said no when others said yes, and now we stand tall." Traoré turned away, wiping his eyes. Even world leaders watching from afar paused. That night, headlines read, "Africa has a new symbol of strength," and the world at last understood. This wasn't about money. It was about something no empire could buy: dignity. If this story made you cry, if it made you proud, if it made you believe again, don't scroll. Like this video. Comment the word strength to show you stand with dignity. And most importantly, subscribe so this message reaches the world. Because the story doesn't end here. It starts with you.